Yo guys, it's Turbo and we are here today for week 3 of the Majors Power Rankings for the National Pokeball League. Now, as you saw from our last week's video, there's been a week of Majors videos updated and we're here with Phalop again. So shout out Phalop.
Hey, hello everyone, and we will be hopping straight into the weekly recap. And unfortunately, last week there were some graphic issues, but this week we definitely will have the graphics up also for the weekly recap part. To start it right off, we will have begin with the battle of the Tampa Bay Focus versus the Golden City Codex. So this game was really down to the wire with it being a 1-0, and actually the match was pretty much like Vert was grabbing some kills, Rob was grabbing some kills, and then in the end it came down to like Scissor versus the world, and it was able to set up an SD. It was looking that it could potentially win the game, but as you might have seen from Rob's video, he had a lot of EVs, different EV spread on his Scissor, so he had like some defense investment, special defense investment, but he had only a little bit of speed investment, and actually Vert had like 16 EVs on his Umbreon, so he was able to outspeed that Scissor, get off the foul play and kill the Scissor, and that really won him the game. If that Scissor outsped the Umbreon, it would have definitely been Rob's game.
And then we got into game 2 this week, which is the Reggie Giants versus the Baltimore Braveries. The Braveries coming off with a 1-0 victory in the late game. Coming through thanks to some plays that the Merc didn't necessarily agree with. Use of Registeel and Merc not being able to break it down really helped Moxie as well with the Rampardos, the raw Rampardos being a really unique and cool set. Kabutop's in here getting 4 kills as well on Merc's side as well, so that's a pretty cool factor from this game.
Yeah, so the next match is the Phoenix Suncon versus Signature Pierce, and as you mentioned, Merc had some plays he didn't agree with. I think Gypsy was about the same. He also Cheese made some plays Gypsy did not fully agree with, and I think if you watch like both sides, you can just judge for yourself if you think they were okay plays or what you do think about it. I think it's also a little bit in your own opinion. But as you can see, Raikkonen got a whopping 4 kills and was able to like clean it in the late game because he got rid of the Scarf Landerers. The Raki put in a massive amount of work, and that really won him the game.
Next up, we have the resurgence of Togevoir, absolutely taking apart Jolt this week with a 3-0 victory. Just the 50-50s that he was winning constantly throughout the turns showed how good Toge was and what we've been missing for the first 2 weeks. Jolt didn't play necessarily badly, he just lost out on a lot of 50-50s, and Toge had a whole momentum the whole way through the game. Good 3-0 victory for him.
Yeah, and then we have like a fight at the bottom, two teams that were kind of struggling in the season, which were the Bayern Munich versus the Chicago Bears. And I know from Shadi, I helped him out. He had a pretty tough matchup. He built some different teams, but he came out with this team and it performed really well. He had some really cool sets, and just Scarf and Gore did a lot of work. Some Calmite Latias, and just overall his team just was really ready to take on the 6 months the Beware squad, and it was just he played I think a pretty straightforward game. I think his prep really carried him, and Mega Canescan getting 3 kills is always nice to see, because some people still think it's broken, some people think it's not broken, who knows.
Next up, we have our first game from Magic, or the FC Populio, the second Jolt of the NPL. The Newcastle Umbreon gain a small 1-0 victory over them thanks to, again, some great late game management with the Tapu Koko. But David played a hell of a game, and Abe clearly admits this in his video. It's a really good game to watch, and it's probably my game of the week this week.
Yeah, and then over to also a really close game between Trav and Riz, which also ended in a narrow 1-0. And as you can see, Mega Galate again with a great performance this week, picking up 4 kills again. It was able to, I think, somewhere midway through the game, Clefable was trying to set up some cosmic powers. Mega Galate got the poison first. Then I think on the turn, Riz was going for that Moonblast to just weaken the Mega Galate, put in range of some of his other mons. The Mega Galate got a crit, Clefable went down, and Galate was really healthy, and it really helped him carry out in the late game.
And finally, we got the Tampa Bay Luxrays versus the Los Angeles Reshiram's. Tampa Bay coming over with a small 2-0 victory after some 50-50s during the game. Matty trying to predict around potentially a what he saw as a potential fighting half damage berry. It escapes the name of me right now. I can't think what it's. Choppleberry. Tyranitar predicting around that, but it ends in a Mimikyu sweep as it gets the +3 on the Cresselia. So that's our weekly recap done. how about you jump into your bottom of the power rankings, Phalop? You start us off.
Yeah, so at the bottom, last week it was the Florida Persians. This week it's FC Poplio, and that's nothing to discredit David at all, because he played a hell of a game. You mentioned it, and Abe mentioned in his video, and if you just watch the match, both sides, it was a really great game. It was a really narrow game, but then you have to think about it. It's not his own team he has at the moment. Yes, he made some transactions, but still, I think he will definitely struggle with this team quite a lot, because it's a pretty hard team to use. He also starts off 0-3, so with that position, 0-3, not your own team, a really hard team to use, I think it's really hard for him to come back. And that's why he's for now number 16. But who knows, maybe he will go on to a win streak.
Okay, and at my number 16, I have Razor. Now, Razor got beaten by Shadi, and as you can see last week, I had Shadi above Razor, no, Razor above Shadi, so naturally I just switched them around. That's kind of the fair procedure. I think that Razor's Mienshao set was lacking. I didn't really like the way it matched up against his team. Instead of not running Reckless, considering he has a Weezing is an amazing check to fighting types, because most fighting types other than like Gallade or the Metacham don't have good coverage to hit it. I think that Razor's team is lacking this week in considering what Shadi could bring, considering how good Razor's matchup was, and that's why I've ranked him down at the bottom. And now you can talk a bit about Razor.
Yeah, because I have him like one spot above, and also basically switched him around with Shadi. So yeah, I think you pretty much covered it. What I also didn't really like was some, I don't know, I watched both sides, but still Razor made some kind of weird plays, like why would you stay in with your Tandy on a Seismic and just go for knockoff, because Seismic still can hit you pretty hard. And also, why would you stay in with an Aerodactyl on Seismic just to go for some Rock Slide? I know he had trouble dealing with the Seismic, but those mons could have definitely had value in late game. Tandy was a big threat to Shadi. Arrow was a really great way to deal with like Genghis-Khan, for example, because it outspeeds and resist its normal spam. So yeah, it was a really some weird plays in the match that it's also why I think Razor pretty much lost the game, and it's really weird.
And so I'm going to talk about Shadi now, because he's just right above me, right above Chicago here as well. Shadi wasn't very happy when he saw this, and I put it in the chat. But the reason I'm going to put Shadi here and put Shadi here is because, okay, Razor made some weird plays, and I think Shadi hasn't been tested as of yet, and every test he's had so far he hasn't passed other than beating Razor. So he lost to Gypsy, that's excusable, but he's got 2 big games coming up against Rob and Jolt, and if he performs well in those games, then fair enough, Shadi will be moving up the power rankings. But at this point in time, he beat a Chicago side that was making some odd plays. Although the matchup was bad in Shadi's part, he hasn't been tested enough for me to move him up, and that's why I've got him at number 15. You can finish off talking about Shadi for your number 15.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it. I think he had some cool prep this week. He really prepped quite well. But as you said, he has not really been tested. And as of now, we all know Shai is a great player, but I'm still not convinced by his team. So he definitely has to pick up some more wins to be able to convince us, I think.
And at my number 14, because you had Shadi at 14, I've got Merc. Now, again, Merc's had a bit of an up and down season for me so far in the power rankings. I've been convinced by his performances to some extent, but he just hasn't been finishing them as well as he needs to. He's been playing well, but not winning the games, and that's the problem. And that's why I've got him low down, because the teams I've got above him, I feel like, have been playing their games as well as Merc has, except they've been getting results, or some, maybe not. I think Merc should be winning the games that he's perhaps losing. It's a difficult one to rank with Merc, because he's playing these games so well, yet not getting results out of them, and that's why I've got him at number 14, because I feel like I had to drop him because of the way I've treated the other teams around him.
Yeah, that's all fair. So moving on to my number 13, and actually also your number 13. So the first team we got the same, and those are the Los Angeles Rams, coached by Maddie. So basically Maddie, the start of the season, he just dressed a fun team and just played to his best, practiced to his best, and tried to come out on top. And this week, I think it was just not his best week. There was like a 50-50 with the Bowman ball. If was that Tita triple parry, because he went for power punch. If Tita was not triple parry, he would have just fed out, killed the Tita, had a +1 boost, and been in a solid position. But now it was triple, and was able to two-shot the crab. And also, just basically in the beginning, Mono brought a bulky ace side with Violet and just dual step as the roost, and Matty could not deal with it at all. His more bulky ones were set up for his offensive ones could just outsped and die to side or so. Just something simple like that, he could just not really deal with it. And then in the end game also Mimikyu showed to be a big late game threat and just clean up the game. So I don't think this is Matty's best performance. I think he will definitely will show us in the future a lot better games. But, yeah, I'm still not convinced.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. You pretty much summed it up. The only thing I can say about Matty is it was a bit of a weird game for Matty's part because prep's usually better than what it was. I think he could be a bit more consistent. The reason that people might ask why have you got Merck below Matty if Merck's results have technically been better than Matty's, you got to look at the two key teams in comparison. If Matty's generating still very decent performances with that fun squad compared to Merck's more serious, he's trying hard squad, I think that's why I've got Matty above him, just because Matty's still playing quite well and it's quite fun to watch and it's refreshing to watch him try and use a fun team. It's not quite working for him this week, but you can now go on and talk about the Portland Timbers.
Yeah, so the Portland Timbers are number 12. So yes, they finally picked up a win and they are climbing out of the depths they were in the first 2 weeks. And I think they are onto a solid track, but still all the teams around them are also in that like 1 or 2 wins. I think almost all teams are 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. So they are pretty close to each other. And yeah, the Timbers are no exception. And yes, they had a really solid win this week. And he had some nice momentum. Pretty much a pretty nice momentum game, won some nice 50-50s, scouted for some certain moves. So it was a really solid game played by Toke, and I think Rodon Cut also played a huge part into it because Jolt also mentioned it, he did not prep really well for it. And also, final mention about his team, he finally was able to get his Mega Mawa off. He could finally do it after 3 weeks, but props to him.
And my number 12, I've got the FC Popular. Now you had them last. I've got them 12 for one specific reason. You mentioned it's not his team, and then he comes out and pulls a performance like that up against one of the top teams in the league at the moment, being Abe and the Newcastle Umbreon. I was really impressed by that. I watched Abe's commentary and he commentated the game live, and you could tell by the way he was reacting to situations, he was under threat. David put him on the ropes, and that was really impressive for a team that he might not be comfortable with, which is why I've ranked him reasonably high. I think when Dave gets his transfers in, David gets his transfers in, he'll do really well in the season. And shout out to the fact of him being the only coach to have uploaded a majors and minors coach game in the same week, so that's pretty cool as well. But we both have the same number 11, so you talk about Gotham City Galaxy first.
Yeah, so Rob this week, basically I mentioned in the weekly recap, if his scissor just had a little bit more speed, he would have just won the game, and I think he would have then been I think he's still 2-1. I don't know. I'm always forgetting which teams are 1 and 2-1 because they're all really close to each other. Basically, he had to grasp on that game, but just could not finish it. But some downsides were, and it's also why he's still not as high up, is he made, I think, also a miscalc with his stun somewhere in the game, and he was thinking he could kill the Arcanine, but he actually could not, and it could cost him some HP on his Thunderous, and then the speed with Scissor. I think both those things, if he just had a bit more careful in his prep or just in scalking, and with those two things, he could just have won the game. The only last thing I want to say is that I think around the C move from the Zygarde, he played around it quite nicely. He had a sack in the back, he just sacked them on to it, and then the Z move was nullified, so that was really nice.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think that you've got to be aware though, 16 speed Umbreon, no, 16 speed Sizzle, and or was it the other way around? But basically, Verd put in great prep with the speed on the Umbreon because he knew Sizzle would creep it. I think you've got to give Verd the credit for that, but if you've got to talk to Rob in the sense that Rob knows that he needs to be outspeeding the Umbreon for Sizzle to do an effective job. I think you're going to be putting more EVs than 16 in your Sizzle because, like, generally in prep, because you know that's going to happen. It's great prep on Verd's part, but if you put 20 EVs in that Sizzle, you're not losing much from HP or attack either way. Yeah. So that those extra 4 EVs aren't going anywhere, just to be safe, to be honest. I think that he did play fairly well, but again, his team was slightly too efficient and not effective enough, and that's why he went down to Verd this week. But now we both have Verd above him, so go on and talk about Verd.
Yeah, so we pretty much talked a lot about the game, and we have to give him credit for thinking about putting a little bit of speed on that Umbreon, which was quite enough. And then I think the only thing which I can more say about this match is that Verd had some cool text in his prep. I think he had something like Camouflage, Zygarde, Subcellular, Katana. I think those were quite some cool sets, and some did some work, some did not really show, but still nice prep and a nice narrow victory.
Yeah, Verd's pulling out a few good stops in this NPL campaign so far. A few set a good prep. I think that the 16 speed Umbreon was very, very good. He's managing Umbreon a lot better than he has been. Umbreon is notorious. He had difficult mon to manage if you draft it. And I think he did very well in this game to work out how to use the Umbreon properly. Yeah, I think it was just a pretty solid performance from Verd, and hopefully he can carry on doing so. But you can talk about a team that you ranked previously quite high, but now they've been dropping ever so slowly down. You can talk about Jolt right now.
Yeah, so from 4 to 9 is a pretty heavy drop, but still, he went from like 1-0 having a really solid performance, I think 1-2, and he is dropping and a bit falling behind the others. And yes, he had a tough matchup this week, and sometimes you just look at the matchup and normally you can work your way around all the mons, but sometimes you just look at the teams and you think, okay, this is just a really shitty matchup, I can't do anything. And he tried his best. He opted, I think he said also in his video, he opted to prep for the 8 most expected mons, but then Rotom Cut was not in it, but it was brought in the game, and that basically could get, every time it come in, it could get momentum because his only immunity was Swampert, you don't switch in. And then on top of that, there were some 50-50s which also were not really going to his favor, and it all led to his downfall. But it was a pretty convincing loss, and that's, I think we don't see often that Jolt loses the prep game and the play game. So that's definitely hard for him, I think.
Yeah, some interesting points you made there, but I'm going to talk about the Baltimore Briberies, who have been slowly rising, ever so rising on my power rankings this week and from the previous weeks. But I've got to talk about the top 8 first of all. It hasn't quite broken into the top 8 because the top 8 is just a mishmash of teams that could be placed in any sort of order because they're all so tightly close together, and Baltimore's just below that, unfortunately. He pulled out a good victory against Merck this week, a great Rampardos set, which was slightly unexpected. I wanted to see Rampardos do work. It did do some work in terms of roaring stuff around, not something you'd really see usually Rampardos do, but it was a cool way of doing things. He made some plays that Merck didn't necessarily agree with, but are slightly odd, but I mean, if they worked for him, they worked for him. You can't question them. I think that's the attitude you've got to take. But Baltimore, keep playing steady on. I think he's one of the only undefeated teams.
Yeah, the only
undefeated team, which is weird to have him at number 9, considering he's an undefeated team. You got him at number 7, so it's a bit odd to have an undefeated team that low. But Moxie, keep doing what you're doing because it's clearly working. You talk about Merc right now. Are you on number 8?
Yeah, so I think you made some fair points, but I rated Merc, I think, from the beginning a little bit higher, and I still think like he lost like 2 games now, but they were insanely close, and I think with just 1 or 2 plays or just 1 or 2 instances of hacks, the game would have completely reversed and could have gone in either direction. That was also the case this time around. I think crit on salary was a really huge setback for him. But other than that, I think just some nice things about him was that he knew at the end that Infinite was really scary, so he knew even he had to keep his Kabutops even if it was still really low. He needed to revenge the Infinite, so I think that was really great that he saw that during the match. The only thing that was a little bit unfortunate, he also mentioned himself, he let his Gligar go down by just earthquaking in a Rampardos. He had a Sugar Berry and he got killed by an Avalanche. Well, if he preserved the Gligar really well, Gligar could have outstalled and outlasted just the whole team of Moxie and just won him the game flat out. So that's just a little bit unfortunate, and that's why he still is, I think, just out. Yeah, he's just inside the top 8, but really struggling.
And my number 8, a person who hasn't moved from last week, and he didn't let me down. That's the real Togue. He played an excellent game against Jolt this week. Just winning 50-50s, doing an excellent job in making the right plays at the right times, not falling for Jolt's bluffs or baits. He just played his game, held the momentum the whole way through, got his Mega Evolution off. It's nice to see a Mega Mawile finally after 3 games this season. That's pretty cool. But yeah, the Rotom Cut was a great bring on his part. Okay, he did have the matchup as a sort of advantage on his part, but it doesn't really matter. He did what he needed to do to win, and he took a great victory from it. The one thing I can say about the Timbers is now I want to see consistency. I want to see them continued results. I don't want him to drop to what he was doing in the last 2 weeks. I need to see consistency from Togue.
Yeah, all fair. So number 7, I have the Baltimore Braviers. Pretty much all the teams above him are at 2-1 actually, and he is the only 3-0 team. But still, I think if you follow the NPL really closely, yes, some of his matchups matches were really close and also came down to the wire, had a little bit of hacks involved, and I think all those factors played a role, but still he is undefeated. And if you just look at it this week again, he had some really cool prep. If you look at his EV spreads, they are so really customized. Like he has, I think, his EVs really spread out to take hits from different kind of mons. I think he really does a great job with that. I think defensive from Pardos was also a really cool tag this week. It was really cool to see, at least. I don't think I've ever saw it before. And also just play just in the match itself, in the end game, he really made like a solid double in the end with like infinite predicting Lucario, and that really got him a lot of momentum, and it was able to maybe even win in the game at the end. So I think that was really nice by him. So he played pretty nicely, he prepped really nicely, he had a little bit of hacks. I think those three all are really key to performing really well this season. So I hope he is doing what he's doing.
That's pretty cool. Break, well done, keep going. Next up, I have my Phoenix Sunkern now. The Phoenix Sunkern, not Phoenix Sunkern, I've got them twice on my ranking for some reason. I do mean the Phoenix Sunkern, but I have them. I know why I have them twice. On number 7, I have the Phoenix Sunkern. Basically, they pulled out a great win against Gypsy this week. Thanks for correcting that on the sheet right there. But Gypsy, they had a great win against Gypsy this week. Gypsy didn't agree with some of the plays, and neither did Aki. If you want to check the comment section below. But I think that the attitude you got to take to that game is, whatever Cheese's thought process was, it was the right thought process no matter what, because he got the best result out of the turn, if that makes any sort of sense. I think that Cheese making that reckless play might have been the reckless play that he thought he needed to make to win the game, and if that's the play you think you need to make, then make it and you win the game, and it's going to come off. And when you're playing a person like Gypsy, when you're playing a person like Zazo, those sort of tier players, you've got to make some plays that sometimes don't make necessarily full sense, because the plays that make sense, Gypsy will know in his mind, and he'll cover that base, if that sort of makes sense. So if you play without a brain, it might come off for you like 20% of the time it might work, 80% of the time it doesn't work. I think this was just one of those 20% of the times, and I mean, Cheese pulled it off, so fair play to him. He's doing pretty well so far this season, a team to watch out for. Yeah,
definitely, and I will cover him a little bit later, but first I go with the inferior Phoenix team, the Phoenix Sunflowers. So basically, Riz, up till this point, he was undefeated. He lost this game 2-0, but still he had some solid prep, definitely. I think defensive setup with the Cosmic Power to Fable, I think it was nice. And he realized that he could not just flat out win the game, because he would just get critted eventually. So he went for like, okay, I'm now just going for damage so I can deal with the Mega Gallet a little bit easier, but then he got critted. Really unfortunate that he just thought of it a little bit too late. If he had done it like a turn before, he could have just, maybe the game would have gone a whole different way. But I think it was definitely a close match. He had some good prep. I don't think there were many misplays he made. I think just Trev outclassed him this week.
Fair enough. Now, I've got number 6 as Jolt, the token minorities. Now, as I've said before, this top 8 is a complete mishmash of teams that keep jumping up and down below each other because they're all playing well against each other. Now, Jolt did something that not many people have seen Jolt do, which is sort of succumb to, in the game, all of the momentum and succumb in prep, which is not a Jolt things to do. Usually he is on top of his game, and I've not actually seen a performance like that from him. He didn't necessarily play badly, he just couldn't catch up in the game, and that's where his problems felt. I think that he did struggle with a team matchup, and he said it very, very eloquently in his team builder that he's going to take this risk, and if the risk doesn't pay off, he's going to get sort of dicked down, and that's what happened. The Rotom cut came, he had nothing to deal with it, and then he lost every 50-50, and that's what lost him the game. So he did take a risk. It was a calculated risk, so that's fair play to him, but it just didn't come off, and there's nothing to be ashamed of with that. He just got beaten by a better team on the day. That's fair enough. But next you have Trev. You've already talked about Phoenix, so you can talk about Trev.
Yeah, so yeah, he played risk, he pulled out a pretty nice win, and I think just this week he played pretty solidly. Like in the game itself, he was a bit unlucky and a bit lucky at the same time, so pretty much evened itself out, because at the beginning the Greninja flinched like Torkoal twice with Dark Pulse, while Torkoal was just trying to break that sash, and then he had to go into Finny, and he broke the sash of Greninja, but it could just finish off the Finny, so that was really unfortunate for Trev, because if he just had broke that sash, that would not have been the case. Then later on he got that crit on Clefable, which helped his Galliot stay pretty healthy, and also pretty much won him the game eventually. So yeah, I think it even itself out, just a really solid game by Trev. Not much to say about it as well.
So
and the victory ball is also a cool tech.
Fair enough. I want to talk about Phoenix Sunflowers. The Sunflowers, so I've got the Sunflowers above the Sunkern this week. Riz, again, keeping inconsistent with his results, having very offensive games, having very, very close games. I think he did misplay in not trying to go for the Gallade late game, because that kind of is what lost him the game. But, I mean, he played pretty well otherwise. They pretty much matched each other for how well they played, except Trev edged it in the end because Riz lost it late game. He's been playing consistently well the whole way through, all weeks 1, 2, and 3, and it's really nice showing from Riz so far. I'm pretty sure he can carry on this momentum that he's got going, not with a massive loss this week as well. So I think the Sunflowers are doing pretty well this season, and now you can talk about the Sunkern.
Yeah. So we're now moving into our top 4 actually, and I have at number 4 the Phoenix Sunkern. So basically, yeah, they are pretty much like the underdog. Nobody thought, geez, okay, it's like the first time he's joining Gen 7, he was pretty good Gen 6, how will he perform? But now he's 2-1. He beat Jitsu, which was previously undefeated, and people really struggled to play him. So yeah, basically I think it was a pretty nice win for him. Yeah, if you just look at the match, I think there were some turns that you might think, okay, well, this is a little bit of a weird play by Cheese, and I don't think some people thought, okay, Cheese is like a god because he makes those predictions, but it was just really weird because when you watch Gypsy side, he was not really agreeing with it. But if you just watch Cheese side, which Cheese side was live commentary, so it was also really weird because I could not figure really out what Cheese was thinking from his live com. So I still don't know if Cheese is some god or he just thought about the best possible scenario. He just maybe wanted to scout off what like Celestino wanted to do with the Stoutland and just went for the return, but then Gypsy made a double because he was in the back, and then Cheese benefited from it. So it was really weird to say how it really went, but in the end Cheese won 3-0, pretty convincing win. Yeah, that's really helped him because he's now 2-1. I think he's on a pretty hot streak actually.
Nice. And now the team that I accidentally left out of my power rankings, but there's a reason to this. It's Trev, and Trev is kind of like the dark horse. It sort of suits his personality that left him out. He's sort of the dark horse of the NPL. He's always sort of hanging back and pulling out some good victories, and he did that this week against the Sunflowers. He did it last week against Mono as well. So Trev is a force to be reckoned with this season. He's using Mega Gallade excellently, preserving his, well, it was his win con, and the way he used it at the end of the game just took him over the edge of Riz's general control throughout the game. Riz just lost it in the late game. Trev capitalized and won the game, and he's just a threat. He could be a slight underdog and a threat to the championship this season. I would put Trev down for playoffs easily, and I think if he continues on this the wave he's on, his team is looking nice. He's pulled off a few interesting trades as well as of, I believe, week 4 the trades come active.
Yeah.
So he might have a different team from late on because he did some business with Shardy and the Bayern Munich. So wait till you see those trades, and Trev is looking like a force to be reckoned with. But now we have a consistent top 3. You can talk about the Lux race first.
Yeah, so with the Lux race at number 3, and basically Mono this week played a pretty solid game. He had some pretty solid prep, and just that prep carried it over into the game because, as I mentioned in the recap, the site was able to wreak some havoc on Manny's team actually, and he got I think a skull burn with Mega Blasters, I think on the third and last skull. If he did not get that, it might have gone really dicey because he lacked revenges to Cider actually. So that was a bit lucky, but also if you look at it overall pretty fair. Then the Chopper Berry really saved Tita from the Carbomin ball, and then in the end game he knew Mimikyu could basically set up an SD or even 2 on the Crusader and just win the game from there with Shadow Sneak also. So that was really cool, and also he even had, but the Hooper did not come, but he had Bayaka Berry, Pin Missile, Toxic Packs. It also was a really cool tech, and would have gladly seen that work, but if unluckily the Hooper was not brought.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I'd like to put out there that Mimikyu is probably one of the best late game sweepers in Draft League format. The way Mono's using it, and keeping it in the back as well, especially in this game, just keeping it in the back. He's got his SD up, he's got his free hit that he can take, gets it in on a Cresselia, which is easy to set up for it, sets up, +3, wins the game, easy as. The management with Tita is very, very nice. Matty didn't necessarily play well on that side of the game, but Mono did what he needed to do to win. He out-prepped Matty in a sense, and he's playing very, very, very well this season. He's keeping that GBA form into the NPL season, so keep it up, Mono. But you can talk about Abe now to start.
Yeah, so Abe, as we mentioned a few times already, he played again a nail-biter of a game. And I think just this is how Abe likes to play his games. They are really close, but he knows what he has to keep in the hand to just win the game. And he played really a momentum game again with like Scarf Coco and just some other vault switching and you turning around. I think that's really Abe's playstyle also. I think the only few downsides were that his scissor cord eventually he had to let it get burned by like the Mew. If scissor was not burned, I think it could have even maybe taken the game home a little bit earlier. And also something, and that's just about specific Mon, he like U-turned out with Serena because otherwise he might lose some momentum. If you U-turn out of like such a Mon that is at 50%, then it can't stake hits anymore later on, which is a bit of a problem because some Mons are quite well, he could deal with it with Serena if it was healthy, but now after one turn it was not healthy anymore because he had to U-turn out. It's a little bit unfortunate. I think other than that he played a really phenomenal game, and again Coco came in clutch.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that David had Abe on the ropes, but Abe fought well and he came out with the victory 1-0. I'd like to put it out there that I think Abe is the best user that I have seen so far of Tapu Koko in draft format. Abe is using this thing like a monster. He's preserving it twice in like 2 weeks. I think it's twice in 2 weeks, where he's preserved it till the end game and then it's got him a victory. Clutch victory from the way he's prepped with it and the way he's then used it to win the game. I think he is the best user of Tapu Koko in draft format at the moment, which is a cool accolade to have, if it's just coming from me anyway. He played a really good game against David. It was a really end-to-end game. If you want a tense live com, watch Abe's live com definitely, but he didn't just have enough to take above the top team that is Gypsy at the moment. So you can talk about Gypsy.
Okay, yeah, so Gypsy is still on number 1 even despite that he lost this week, and I think that's basically because the first 2 weeks he just had such convincing wins and his team is also pretty solid. And I think this week maybe he over-predicted too much, maybe Cheese just got to him in his head, but he knew he had to make some certain plays to like get back in the game and just get the edge over Cheese, but they did not really work out, and then things went easily downhill from there. And also he lost, due to those like kind of predictions, he lost some really crucial mons for his team, like that Scarf Landers and also just weakening Hariyama at the beginning. Those two mons could deal well with the Raika, and now he lost them, and then Raika, as you saw, just cleaned up the game. So that was really unfortunate. I think he might have just risked the wrong mons. But other than that, just solid performances for the first 2 weeks, and I think he will definitely bounce back from this.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree with you as well. I don't think it's right to drop Gypsy just after one loss. People have to understand when you're power ranking, it's not done on a sole week. Gypsy has been playing phenomenally from the weeks before that, so it's not right to drop him just on one loss. He did say that he didn't agree with a lot of the plays that Cheese made, but again, I explained that before. I think you've just got to take it as what it is. Cheese made that play, and you've just got to take it. I think that whether it makes sense to you or not, it made sense to him at the time, especially since he was doing a live com. So he might be some unforeseen draft league god, as you can see. But the finals rematch from, I think it was season 4? Season 5. Cheese came out on top. I don't see any problems for Gypsy coming on through on the season. Otherwise, he's a certain on for playoffs. And I can't wait till he plays the top teams like the Umbreons and the Luxrays as well. I think they'll be great matches if he does match up against them anytime soon.
He already played the Umbreons week 1.
Oh, that's my bad. That is my bad. I think if the Umbreons had played him at week 5 or 6, it might have been a different story or a bit of a type of game. But I should have known that. But anyway, we have hit 33 minutes, so it's the shortest power rankings as of yet. We are loving the support that you are leaving in the comments below. Someone even messaged me today to ask me what time this was going up tomorrow, so that's pretty cool as well. So if you've got anything else to say, Phalop, otherwise we will close off.
No, just make sure every Sunday you stay tuned for all the battles. They will be going up every Sunday. Just watch every game, because we give a short version of what we think, but we also watched all the games and you learn the most from those games. It's really cool to just watch them, because they all have their different style of play, different style of prep, and you definitely learn a lot from those guys.
So that's going to be us out. Have a nice week and enjoy the game.